Iran's nuclear program, minor setback or obliterated? A leaked preliminary Pentagon report suggests the damage by U.S. airstrikes was not as extensive as President Trump claims. However, the International Atomic Energy Agency reports very significant damage and fears radiological leaks. Well, joining us with more is former Deputy National Security Advisor, Vice President of the Heritage Foundation, Victoria Coates. Victoria, we're receiving mixed messages here. So in your opinion, how extensive were the U.S. and Israeli airstrikes against the Iranian nuclear sites? And were they a temporary setback, a devastation that will take years to rebuild? What do you think?
Well, I'm more in the obliteration camp. I think that knowing what I know about the planning for this operation, which has been going on for more than a decade, and the ordnance that was dropped on these three sites, it's hard to see them coming out in any way intact. And it's important to realize that what was leaked, and it was leaked via a couple of reporters who were responsible for hits like the Hunter Biden laptop, the Steele dossier. These are the outlets that had received, and the individual reporters that had received those false pieces of information in the past. So this is clearly a playbook that's being followed here to leak an early assessment, that makes that judgment with, in Intel speak, low confidence, which means they don't know. And so I think you have outlets like CNN, the New York Times, in a race to be wrong, because they'd rather be wrong and discredit the president than wait and report accurately that this was a successful strike.
Yeah, they don't want to give him any credit, or the pilots who actually did the mission. A recent report suggests that 900 pounds of Iranian uranium is missing, may have been moved or hidden elsewhere. Additionally, unverified reports are indicating that other countries might be assisting Iran in acquiring nuclear warheads or in rebuilding their program. And an Iranian government official has also stated that they're already constructing a new enrichment facility. So is this Iranian propaganda? What are your thoughts on these developments?
Well, it's certainly something to watch, but I think if Iran were foolhardy enough to build another enrichment facility, A, we would see it, and B, we could destroy it. And there's nothing they could do about it. They are utterly exposed at this point. They have no air defenses. They have no air force to speak of. And so, if they've spent $2 trillion over the last 20 years on their nuclear program, if they're going to spend another $2 trillion over the next 20 years to reconstitute it, I'm okay with that timeline. But I also think we can set it back whenever the president would choose to do so.
In your opinion, what's the likelihood of regime change? We're not seeing anti-Ayatollah activists and protesters in the streets of Tehran right now.
Well, if it does happen, it's going to happen outside Tehran. You'll start to see it in more provincial towns, and it'll be interesting to watch. The president has been clear that the mission of the United States in this case is not regime change. It was to obliterate the Iranian nuclear program, and that's what he stayed very focused on. And in an effort not to get involved in another prolonged, open-ended conflict like the ones we've seen previously in the Middle East, he wants to wind this up now. This is it. We did what we said we were going to do. Now we're going to move on. Now, that said, the Iranians have been severely weakened and degraded, and the regime still has its kind of oppressive control apparatus that it imported from China to maintain its power over the Iranian people. But their perception, the Iranian people's perception of their leadership, has significantly changed. And it may take some time for that to manifest itself as they wrap their heads around what's happened over the last 2 weeks. But I think that is very possible going forward. It's just not the stated purpose of the United States.
So give it some time, in other words. So what is the risk then of an Iranian reprisal against the U.S., whether through sleeper cell agents or a cyber attack targeting the electrical grid or water supply here?
Again, something to watch very closely. We know that some 1,500 Iranian nationals were part of the apprehended and then released into the United States during the Biden administration, part of that group. So they're here. Some of them got rounded up yesterday and the day before. Most concerningly, an Iranian army sniper down in Alabama, which might seem like a curious place, but bear in mind, around Huntsville, Alabama, are some of our most sensitive nuclear industrial sites. So that's a bad place for somebody like that to be, and something we have to watch. And then the threat of cyber attacks is also something that the Iranians have significant capability in. And I'm hopeful this is a major topic of conversation at the NATO summit this week, because we do have collective cyber defense capabilities with NATO. They're centered in Estonia, of all places, because Estonia was the location of one of the first major cyber attacks from Russia in 2007. So hopefully they're talking about that. They have vulnerabilities to the Iranians too. And so this is a place where we can actually use NATO capabilities to defend the United States as well as Europe.
Okay, Victoria Coates, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.